Hey everybody, this is Perch. I've talked about networks and in the past, and usually from the standpoint of creators. And definitely, it's true that creators have different networks. There was a good quote. I did a bit for Wes on Thinking Critical, and in that show, where he found kind of five takes that he liked, and it was a good show. It was a nice, positive show. But Klaus Johnson made this comment at one point around people should seek out a network and and basically get mentored, find a mentor. And the point that we were making is it is very good advice. It's not one that many creators take. A lot of them just go with the network part. They go with somebody who's going to help them get a job and kind of look out for them and have that kind of professional network, which is great. Good for you. But it's the other part. The point Johnson was trying to make was that you should try and find a mentor, somebody who's going to put guardrails up for you, somebody who is brave enough to give you, point out when you're astray or when things are going off track. To like, hey, don't do that. It's like back in the 2000s. I remember going to comic conventions, and there's still a little bit where creators would look out for each other and like, hey, don't get drunk. And I remember fairly famously an artist who, maybe this isn't the thing that he'd want me to say, made the comment of like, hey, a good mentor, a good friend, somebody in comics is somebody who's willing to, hold your head up above the toilet. Now, maybe that's kind of a romance. But an even better mentor is somebody who doesn't helps make sure you don't get in that position in the first place, certainly not in front of your colleagues and your boss. But in general, a lot of, fast forward 10 years later, and I mean, I've just seen creators and editors going out and just getting, wrecked to the point of oblivion. And then it's always like the amount of faith, by the way, if you ever go to these cons, the amount of trust and faith that people put into Uber drivers, it's amazing. Like a friend of mine who was driving down in San Diego was saying that, that very common during these conventions, not just comics, but just any convention, that people get so hammered up in Old Town and they'd take the car back to downtown where they were staying, and they would just get into the play and just pass out, just completely out cold. And like the driver's like, I could have driven them to Tijuana. It's like I used to have these little fantasies, like as I was driving them to their hotel, like of just, driving them on down to Tijuana, dumping them off at the border, and then, see what happened. Just kind of, why not? But it's just amazing that more people don't get rolled in these situations. I don't know. I'm just an untrusting guy. I would never do that because I would always think somebody will, either lightly or not lightly. Somebody's going to draw the penis on your face with the Sharpie marker if you pass out in the back of their cab. I don't know. Maybe they get a low review on Uber. Maybe that's the problem. It's a trust system. At any rate, I think that a lot of people just focus on the professional network. They don't focus on the mentorship part. But, the other weird part in this is I talk a lot about creators, but what I don't talk a lot about is retailers. And retailers also have little networks, little clubs. I definitely have a group of people that I keep in touch with, and we share insights and numbers and stories. I mean, technically, your diamond agreement says you shouldn't do some of that, but everybody does. There is a lot of kind of sharing and collusion. And there's also the unspoken rule that whenever you ask somebody like, hey, so how's your business doing? And you're sharing numbers, the person you're talking to is always inflating how well they're doing by about 20%. just general rule. But it is funny because of the retailer groups, there's really kind of two that I would say are more known or more notable. And I'm gonna describe this poorly, but so hopefully you don't understand what I mean. But one of the retailer groups seems very, very fixated on what I would call clout. So this is a retailer group that really, really tries to suck up to creators who are popular, and it's like I've talked to creators who were popular and were sucked up to by these retailers and just kind of fawned over. And then their careers started to fade a little bit, like a Matt Fraction, who had a really big career and was kind of Marvel's golden boy for a period of time. Then it kind of came down on the other end, and he's doing Sex Criminals, and that's nice, but it's like he's not at that same level. And it's like suddenly, the retailers are not fawning all over him anymore, and it's like, what happened? Well, they're off chasing Donny Cates. That's what's going on. And it's that group I always feel are, I don't know. I roll my eyes at that group because it feels like their true goal, the true person they're selling to, are the other creators, not to the customers. And in my mind, at least in terms of running a successful business, you should know who your customer is, and it's not hard. Your customer is the person giving you money, and those are the people that you should be very aware of, very gracious to, very humble about. You should always feel it's a gift when somebody hands you their money. That is something, somebody is parting with something they earned, and so it's that's something to be thankful for and proud of, and you should give a good service for getting that money. And those are the customers coming in with their cash. The customer are not the supplier. Now, you should be nice to the supplier. You should have a good relationship. You should understand what the supplier is doing. But that's a means to an end. The end is the customer. The reason why you're getting a good insight into what your supplier is doing, in this case, the publisher or the creator, is so you could serve your customer. And for a lot of people, it feels like they open up comic shops because they really want to be in the business. And so they kind of kiss up to the wrong people. The proper retailer kisses up to the customers, the person giving the money. They understand what's going on from the publisher. They try and have a good ongoing communication with creators, so they know what's coming and all the rest. And real friendships can be developed. I'd like to believe that I've got real friendships with several creators, and they are real. These are the people that you send the Christmas card to, or whatever it happens to be. You look out for them when you see them. You buy them a drink. Any of those things. I have lots of those. But business, when you're talking about the business, your customer is the person buying the comic. So that's one network. There's one loose group that kind of chases clout. It's a really weird group because they tend to feed on each other as well. Like if one comic shop, like every now and then, it's like, say, a Scott Snyder will do an interview or something with a comic shop, or he'll do a podcast with one of the comic shops that has a podcast. And the other comic shops are like, oh, good for you. Really nice get. Wow, congratulations. Got Scott Snyder to talk on your podcast. It's really great. But then behind the scenes are like, that son of a bitch. Dumb. So why is Snyder talking to him? Those guys are jerks. I don't know. It's a very kind of rat race kind of environment. And it's one I can't stand. So I do a very poor job. So any of the creators I've talked to, by the way, and some of them pop up here in the chats and other things, when I've said I like their work, I mean it. Like I legitimately like their work. I haven't given anybody like false praise. Like Ben Templesmith. I love Ben Templesmith's work, as we've talked about in the past. So when he popped up, I was like, it was a great moment for me. I was like, as a person, very, very super impressed and happy, and it just I was giddy all over. It's like a little schoolgirl. I guess that's sexist to say. Anyway, I was very happy that he popped up, and I told him I love your work, and I hope he realized I was being honest about it, because I was. I legitimately love what he does, and I'm a huge fan of it. But when I see other people giving fake praise when they're complimenting someone, they don't mean it. It's just that's the person to know. That's the person you're going to kiss up to. I can't stand it. It just I don't even want to be around it. It's just gross on every level for me to have to even hear it. The other group is a more interesting one, and that's the one that I find I'm at odds with more and more as time goes by. And this would be the group that I think you could best describe it as like Brian Hibbs and people like Brian Hibbs. It's people who have worked in the business for a long time. They're veterans of the comic industry. Nothing wrong with that. They've earned their tenure and their time and everything else. They haven't had an easy go of it. But it also tends to be a group that looks to how can we keep things as they are? How can, any kind of change to distribution, any kind of advancement of digital, any kind of like DC is getting a new distributor, any kind of shift is seen immediately as a danger or a threat or a sign that the business is going away or a disaster. Or, you really saw this group kind of come to light when DC did change their distributors, and Bleeding Cool, which is a site that's tapped into these people, very well. A lot of them go on to like write columns at Comics Beat and other places that really kind of caters to that. You know, you've earned your stripes in this business. You've paid your dues, that kind of stuff. Which, again, longtime listeners to the show probably know I can't really stand that concept. You could do good work or you don't do good work. The idea of you paying your dues always seems a little absurd to me. But anyway, that's a longer conversation. But when DC made that move, you saw a bunch of quotes of people saying DC are acting like sociopaths. They're just this over the top, absolutely ludicrous level of reaction. And why I say I'm increasingly at odds with these folks is that on one hand, I do respect and I do pay credence, and they've earned a place in this industry. They've worked hard to survive and make money and everything else, and you can't discount that. But on the other hand, they're one of the reasons why things aren't moving forward, why we're stuck, why when new initiatives have been passed, there becomes this onslaught of kind of angry, grumpy, nope, not going to change kind of columns and articles and comments and everything else. And I'm a believer that the world and business and all of these things, the way I like to picture it is it's like a moving walkway. You know, at the airport, you got those moving walkways. Those are the things you stand on, and then they just move you along. They're people movers. They just move you along. And what you're supposed to do on that moving walkway, by the way, just if I can insert this for a moment, is you're supposed to get on there and you're supposed to walk on the moving walkway. The idea is that you have a normal pace, a normal walking cadence, and you get on that thing, and it's 2x. Now you're traveling twice as fast with the same work effort, same. So it's moving you along faster. You're supposed to walk on those things. What bugs me, and it's really in the U.S. I don't see this in Europe. I don't see it in South America. I don't see it in Asia and Japan, where you see the moving walkways. Is the people who get on the moving walkway and then stop, and then just stand and let themselves be kind of carted along like a human sushi conveyor belt. It's that drives me absolutely insane. Many a time I've been walking down the airport, like Denver. If you ever flown through Denver International, they've got these huge, long, moving walkways, and there, I come across. I'm trying to get to my plane. I'm trying to get somewhere, and there's somebody just standing there, and they're just slumped over their luggage, and they're just standing in the middle of the moving walkway. And I've thought many a time, I'm gonna just smash this guy full in, just send them flying out of the way. It's gone through my head many, many times, I will tell you. If you're ever in an airport and you see some like crazy maniac like stomping his way down the moving walkway and like shouting at people who are just standing there still, it's like, that's Perch. Anyway, at any rate, I think that life is like that moving walkway. It is moving. Now, you can not like it. You can not like where it's taking you. You can be irritated at the journey. You can say, I liked it better 5 minutes ago when I was in front of the Cinnabon. And now the moving walkway has taken me away from those nice smells toward the collection of Indian restaurants, and I'm not nearly as happy with the smells I'm getting now. That is not racist to say. Indian food is not what I enjoy the most from a smell perspective. Do enjoy it taste wise, all good. I'll take the Cinnabon smells over the Indian restaurant smells. Somebody's going to be pissed. It's a dog whistle right there. It's a dog whistle. What can I say? At any rate, whether you like it or not, you're going to be moved along. Now, you can choose to walk on that moving walkway. You can choose to make progress and get somewhere. You can choose to slump over the side like a bag of human luggage and let it carry you along. Or you can stand there and kind of walk in reverse and scream and complain that you're being moved along. But here's the thing. No matter how much you yell, no matter how much you scream, you're going to be moved along whether you like it or not. And a lot of this second group in comics feels like that. They feel like a group of people who are just kind of screaming at the inevitable. They're screaming at the fact that they're getting moved along. And it is it's weird. I think you've got a lot of people. What's strange to me is you have a lot of people, including Brian Hibbs and others. I don't mean to be calling him out specifically by name, but you have a lot of people who have a lot of business insight. They've seen a lot of these things. They have a lot of history in their heads, and yet there's just an exorbitant amount of time spent not moving forward, spent complaining about things changing, spent trying to bring back something that clearly is in the past at this point. I don't get it. I don't understand why that energy, why that effort, and I think to me it's wasted energy. And kind of like I've said in other videos, my mentality, the way I'm built and bred and born, whatever it happens to be. What I'm built to do is to make progress. And so if I run into an obstacle, I start thinking, how do I get around this obstacle? How do I move it along? Because I'm not just going to stand here and stare at the wall and hope that it goes away. And that's why that other group. But generally speaking, when we're talking about retailers, the majority, and I would say 75% of them, are just small business owners trying to survive one way or another. They talk to each other where they need to, and they just try and move things forward. And then you have like two small kind of vocal minority groups. One that's chasing creators for clout, the other that is trying to restore the glory days. And that's pretty much from my perspective what you got. Was this insightful, interesting? I don't know, but anyway, something to think about. There you go, a little bit of information for you. Hope that's helpful. Hey, like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications. Throw in your comments. Let me know what you think. Most importantly, though, thanks for listening.